Hi, and welcome. I'm Kate White, and I'm going to be talking today about success and leadership and careers. And I'm so glad you could join me. Just in case you're not familiar with me, I'm the former editor-in-chief of Cosmopolitan magazine, had that fantastic job for 14 years, but decided a few years ago that I wanted, while I was still young enough, and that's a stretch, to do something else to be a little bit more entrepreneurial. So I've been working on my own for the last couple of years. I do a lot of speaking on success. I've written a number of career books, including I Shouldn't Be Telling You This, How to Ask for the Money, Snag the Promotion, and Create the Career You Deserve. And I also write suspense novels. I've written 10 New York Times bestselling suspense novels. The newest one, The Wrong Man, comes out in June. So now I'm going to be answering your questions. I'm really looking forward to doing that. We've got a great group of them so far. So for the very first question, if we could get that up now. I don't see it posted. So I'm going to jump in and answer a question anyway, since I don't see one coming up. Have you had anyone write into you saying that your career guide really helped them go into the future? And fortunately, I have. It's been so rewarding. And I think for the most part, women tell me that what really helped them from the book was the importance, and men feel this too, about asking for what they want. It's so critical to know that no one's going to hand you the keys to the kingdom, and that's about opportunity and money, that you have to go after it. You have to ask for it. One of the biggest mistakes women in particular make is waiting for somebody to hand it to them. They think in terms of, well, if they think I'm ready, they'll give it to me, but that's just not the case. Next question, how do you gain experience? Well, that's about as universal as you can get. You gain experience just by doing it. You just have to get in there and focus on the right kind of experience. Sometimes people ask me, should they be in a related field if they can't get into the field they want right out of school? But sooner or later, you've got to be doing what's going to give you the opportunity to excel in a particular field. It's really important today to think in terms of being a specialist, not a generalist, okay? So figure out what you want to do, say yes to the things that help you get there and no to the things that don't. Don't waste your time. Where did the title I Shouldn't Be Telling You This come from? I picked that title because, well, partly as the editor of Cosmo, I always like to have a little bit of fun. But I often felt in my own career, and I don't know if you've experienced this too, is that bosses sometimes are reluctant to share information with us that's going to be of value, things that we can take with us when we go to the next job and use to our advantage. It's almost as if they don't want to give away too much, but I always liked sharing what I knew with other people who work for me. I also think that sometimes bosses don't even know how to articulate what they do so well. So even though I wrote, I shouldn't be telling you this, I really wanted to be telling you in my own particular case. I wasn't the kind of boss that felt that I should play my cards close to my vest. And you should try, if you're working for a great boss, to get him or her to explain to you sometimes the reason why a particular project worked, why a particular sale happened, what's going on, because you want to use that not only in your current job, but when you go elsewhere. Next question, what are some of the biggest challenges people from Gen Y face in their careers? Well, I think one of the biggest problems is that we're still in a somewhat sluggish economy, and you want to be able to get in there and get a great job when you come out of school, hit the ground running. And sometimes if you're playing catch up, you may have difficulty ever landing exactly where you want. So be ruthless, be a mercenary for opportunity. You want to use LinkedIn to make connections with everyone you've ever known, and then use advanced search to find connections those people have in places that you want to work. And you want sponsors, not just mentors, people who will open doors for you. And women, studies show, are sometimes reluctant to do that, but ask people on LinkedIn, ask people you meet when you're networking if they will do email introductions for you and open doors for you. You started out by writing books for women on getting ahead in their careers. What made you decide to write another genre, your murder mysteries? I guess you could call that my plan B. Even when I was at Redbook magazine before Cosmo, and I was at Cosmo for 14 years, I decided that one, I wanted a plan B because the magazine business can be pretty ruthless and dangerous, and I managed to make it and leave on my own terms, but I didn't know that, and I probably had some singe marks on my ass even during what I thought were good years. So I wanted a plan B. Also, I did a little session with myself one day where I said, what's missing? And I knew that as much as I love magazines, I always wanted to write murder mysteries. So in my very last year at Redbook, I started writing them and I wrote them all through Cosmo. It was so rewarding and I loved doing that. Why do you think many people go by the expression, it's better to ask forgiveness than permission in regards to work life? Oh, I love that expression because the way you set yourself apart from the pack in your career is by going big or going home. And you cannot ask permission to do that because bosses sometimes don't realize that a wild card idea of yours is going to be really great until they see it. So let's say your boss asks you to put together a PowerPoint presentation for something you're going to be doing, and you've got a really gutsy, go big idea. Don't run in there and say, Jane, I've got this idea to do it a little bit differently than we've done it in the past, or a lot differently. Can I do it? She might say no. So put together your presentation plenty of time in advance so she can see it, and then go in and say, look, Jane, I know we've always done it this way, but I was thinking this would add some new energy if we tried something different. And you've still allowed yourself time to go back and do it the same old way if she's the kind of boss that doesn't like brand new ideas or she thought you went too far out. But I found that the best bosses don't mind when you make gutsy moves as long as the gutsy move serves the organization and serves your boss. How has the job market changed from when you were first starting out to now? Are people more accepting of women in power positions? So much so. I started in the 70s, and that was a galaxy far, far away. And women had to sue at Newsweek magazine to get into positions higher than research positions. So it was a different time then. It was really tough for women. And those of us who were in the workplace then just plugged along and fought, and we spoke up, and eventually we gained a beachhead and then eventually a lot of headway. Still, there are issues women face, and it's important to know that you may not feel quite as confident as a female as guys do. Guys are much more likely to go after a promotion that involves a stretch than women are. We sometimes think we have to hit every mark. But remember, part of being promoted is learning in that position. So you don't have to fulfill every single aspect of a new job before you go after it. What are some of the most basic tips for women to be successful in their career? And by the way, if you're just joining us, I'm Kate White. I'm the former editor of Cosmo and a career writer and a lecturer on success. And I'm answering some questions today about getting ahead. So what are some of the most basic tips for women to be successful in their career? I think one of them, as I touched on earlier, is the importance of asking for what you want. That means the money you want. You must think of a moment when you are offered a new position and they offer the salary, you must think of that as negotiation. They are so often lowballing you and expecting you to negotiate. So you have to come right out and say, I love the sound of being offered a job here. I'd love to work for you. I'd love to work for this company, but I was hoping for X amount. You also have to ask for opportunity as well. That's critical. No one's going to just give you stuff. And I think it's important too for women to know they have to be a little bit grabby. Just because something doesn't have your name on doesn't mean it doesn't belong to you. So that seat at a meeting next to your boss and no one's sitting in it, go for it. That project your boss is talking about, raise your hand for it. Any tricks and tips you have for the working mom? Boy, thank you for asking that, Taylor. That question is very close to my heart because I raised two kids while I was working and it was tough. But you have to figure out what works for you and create your own blueprint. Look at how other women do it. I was very inspired by some of the tricks I saw women doing, but I made my own rules. And know that you just have to take care of yourself. No one's ever going to look at their watch and say, "Oh, you have kids, don't you have to be out of here at 5:30?" You have to set your own boundaries and see what happens. Try not answering an email from your boss after 6:30, 7 o'clock, and not doing it till maybe 8 a.m. the next day. What happens? Maybe nothing bad. So don't be an enabler. Set boundaries and adhere to those boundaries and build in that time for your kids. You won't regret it. I left every day at 5:30, by the way, my entire career. And I always had to work after the kids went to bed, but I didn't mind that because it was a great trade-off for me. What are some things you shouldn't do in an interview? Well, understand there are three key parts of an interview as far as I'm concerned. The first is those first 5 minutes, and you need to own those, totally own those. The decision not to hire is often made within the first 5 minutes. So go in there with strong body language, a lot of passion. People sometimes think they got to play it cool as a cucumber, but it's that hot tamale, the passionate person that really wins over the interviewer. So know that you don't have time to warm up. Those first 5 to 15 minutes are really important. Then the body of the interview. Be sure that you've really done some practice and you've rehearsed what you're going to say. You don't want it to sound canned, but you need to have said those words over already. You need to have 3 or 4 really great questions. Never, ever, ever use the phrase, "No, I think you've answered everything," when the person asks if you have any questions. Make the interview about the other person too, not just about yourself. That interview doesn't give a rat's ass so much about filling your needs. He or she wants her needs filled. So be sure to say what you can bring to the company and that particular department and that particular prospective boss. Lastly, the last part of the interview, always end by asking for the business. Say something like, "Well, you've answered all my questions. You've made the job sound so fabulous. I think I could bring a lot to this. I would really love this position." Is it true that women can have it all, a family and a career? I certainly think so. I had a wonderful career. I have a wonderful career still, and I raised my family, didn't miss the basketball games, didn't miss the volleyball games or the little violin concerts. But you do make trade-offs. There are certain times in your career you may not feel comfortable having a certain type of position, but go for it and test it and then see. Don't make a guess on it until you have that position. That's Sheryl Sandberg's point in Lean In. Don't anticipate, just go there, try to make it work and see how it goes. I think that it's really a wonderful opportunity time now for women. Just lots of opportunities, though there may be some things like high-powered law firms where you have to bill 70 hours a week that may be tough to do when your kids are small. Be realistic. What's your take on networking? Is there a magical approach to this? Yeah, I've got this formula I like to use for networking, that it's curiosity plus contact that equals opportunity. In other words, though it's important to do your elevator pitch when you meet someone at a networking event, you really need to make it about the other person. Be curious, ask questions. You may find something that really is a revelation and an opportunity. And so with that contact where you've really pumped them and gotten good information, that then can lead to opportunity. And be sure to compliment the person. If it's a higher up, say something like, I read online that speech you gave in front of X group, and I thought it was really interesting. Then ask for the opportunity to contact the person. And all of those factors will help you use networking to your advantage. Don't go to an event and just let whatever happens, happen. Think about who's going to be there in advance, research who's going to be there in advance, and target those people. Who are some authors you enjoy reading? Someone who is interested in me is a suspense novelist. I'm reading the new Lisa Scottolini right now every 15 minutes. Wow, it is so absolutely compelling. I love Lisa Gardner. I love Lisa Unger. I love Karen Slaughter. One of my favorites is Ruth Rendell, Inspector Wexford series. So I'm all over the map with suspense novels, and I really enjoy reading them. Do you recommend people fostering their multiple interests or just sticking to one thing? I think it's really important career-wise to pick a lane. And by that, I mean developing a specialty that you really hone over time. That said, I think it's good to have other areas sort of as backup plans. As I did with suspense writing, I wanted a backup plan in case I got booted out of the magazine business, which fortunately didn't happen, but it's turned out to work really well for me. I also think it's good to have backup plans in case the the future spells doom for your specialty. Think of how fast the world is moving and how many things, how many fields are not as successful today as they were 10 years ago. So keep your ear close to the ground, watch the horizon, and you may want to alter your specialty a bit or adjust it and tweak it so that you're poised for the future. Do you recommend people fostering their multiple interests or just sticking to one? Oops, sorry. Just read that one. What are some things you should do in an interview? I think I addressed that a fair amount earlier. So if anyone who's joined late wants to go back and look at the video, I think you'll find the answer there. What was the best piece of advice you got when you were just starting out in your career? I think one of the best pieces of advice I got was don't feel embarrassed. I was so self-conscious in my 20s, even though I'd won the Glamour magazine top 10 college women contest and I'd appeared on the cover. I still felt like such a bozo and a nerd, and I was afraid to raise my hand. I wanted to be a writer really badly, but after I won the Glamour contest and I called the editor in chief and asked her if I could have a job at Glamour, she said, well, what do you want to do? And instead of saying, I want to be a writer one day, I had done a little work in an election, and I said, well, I'm into promotion. And I spent 2 years in the promotion department, not where I wanted to be, because I did not speak up. So don't be embarrassed. You're often feeling far more self-conscious than you appear. Speak up, let people know what you want. They're going to be interested. You've covered so many topics. Do you have a favorite topic that you're covered throughout your videos? Hmm, I don't quite get that question, so let me go to the next one. Sorry for the delay. Was your experience working in women's magazines overall positive? And I just would like to ask my producer if you could bring some of these questions up for me. That would help a lot. Thanks. I love my experience in women's magazines. I thought it was fantastic. I know women say often, I've heard it a ton, that women can be competitive with each other and not always there for each other. I found that very rarely. And so many of my closest friends are people I met in women's magazines. I thought it was a great field. And because so many moms are in it, it was also a great field to be a working mom in. Why do you think it was important for you to write nonfiction books about women and how they could thrive in their careers? There you go, my producer. Thank you for putting that up there. I appreciate it. I felt it was important for me to cover that territory, to write nonfiction books for women about careers, because I found that there just wasn't a lot of information out there, at least the kind of information I wanted. This was before Lean In, and I just felt that women had to know things that guys didn't know, and I wanted to be able to address women and give them some of the tips that I knew. And even though I had terrific bosses, I said this earlier, bosses sometimes don't even articulate all they know. You'd love it if they just sat there and said, Kate or Bob or Denise, here are the 10 things you need to know, but they often don't do that. And next question, please. Do you have any plans to write more fiction novels soon? Any Bailey Weggins novels coming? I'm writing about a suspense novel a year, The Wrong Man, which I love. It's got a really delicious, I think, twist to it. Is coming out in June. It's about a woman who has a fling with a guy she meets on vacation, and initially he says his life is too complicated with an issue he's dealing with to see her when he gets back, but he then decides, he calls her and says, look, I want to see you when we're both back in New York. She goes to his apartment, and the guy who answers the door with the name of this guy is not the guy. And all bad sorts of bad things happen from there. I am working on another Bailey Weggins novel, too, so that should be out sometime in the next 2 years. Next question. Can you tell us a little bit about Kate TV and how you come up with topics for your videos? A Kate TV, which you see on Booktrib, and I'm so honored to be on the site, just is a quick take on some of the issues that women ask me when I'm out on the road giving speeches to women. There are both questions about career management, and we need to be the relentless architects of our careers, both men and women. But there are also questions about success and leadership that I find women are very interested in knowing how to navigate those waters. And the next question, do you ever get men writing into you to ask about career advice despite your female focus? Yes, I've had guys say so often. In fact, a guy just wrote me today saying he'd use my book to his advantage because some questions do certainly apply for both men and women. And I think sometimes even men can feel a hesitation about asking, can feel a hesitation to grab something that should be grabbed because people aren't going to hand it to you. Is your husband supportive of your overall career and writing regimen? Yeah, he certainly is. And I feel that it's critical to have someone as your partner, whether you are married or not, somebody who is going to be supportive of what you have to do. Because so often it might involve, hey, I've got to drop off at a cocktail party today after work and I'm not going to be home. Or guess what? For me, it was working every single night after the kids went to bed, starting at about 9 or 10 o'clock. And my husband had to understand that. But he was very supportive. And of course, the wonderful thing about having a very successful career is that it really gave us lots of opportunities as a family to go on wonderful eco trips around the world, every place from the Amazon to Antarctica. And so, though there might be some trade offs we had to make, the rewards were terrific too. But test the waters with a new guy you meet. Watch how he responds to your success. Does he ask about it? Is he excited about it? Those could be warning signs if he's not that way, that you've got the wrong person. What is one tip you could give us, ladies, on how to use bitch envy to your advantage? Thank you for asking about bitch envy. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I believe that sometimes when we find ourselves calling another woman a bitch because she does something really annoying, like maybe she hogs the limelight in a meeting or she brown noses the boss, it's not because she's a bitch, but deep down inside, we envy what she's doing. A little voice is telling us on a subconscious level that we need to be doing more of what she's doing. Maybe we don't need to be doing it the same way she's doing it, but there's a chance that we do know, hey, I should be speaking up more, or I need to be not necessarily brown nosing my boss, but getting more face time with him or her. So when you find yourself really annoyed about a woman, ask yourself, what about her behavior may be indicating to you that you need to step up your game? What was the best piece of advice you got when you were just starting out in your career? I think I answered that question already. It was about the importance of just going for it and not feeling self-conscious, just putting myself forward. I talked a minute ago about not actually asking at Glamour, where I had an in from winning the Glamour contest, not asking them to help me get on the path to be a writer. I said, oh, well, I want to be in promotion because I had done a little bit of that. Just go for it. How long does it usually take you to film one of your career advice videos? Okay, I've got a little secret here. It doesn't take too long because my husband fabulously is a video producer. So I just run up to his studio on the top floor of our house in Manhattan, and I do a couple at a time, and it's been great. And that goes back to the idea of marry the right person, male or female. What's one stereotype about men versus women in the workplace that you've aimed to disprove? I hate the idea that women get all emo at work, that they can be emotional. And I think that women keep a cool head just like so many guys do. Yes, there are exceptions, both among men and women, but the women I've worked for have been really cool headed. And in fact, that brings up a great tip someone once told me. Cold is always better than hot. That when you get hot under the collar, when you get any kind of dramatic or hyper or particularly over the top in your response, your anger shows, you are not going to get people to act the way you want to. Cool, cold is so much better. If you are upset about something, sleep on it, at the very least count to 10. Not only wait 24 hours to send that email, don't send the email because any email written in annoyance or anger is going to last forever. So pick up the phone instead when you've cooled down. And if you're upset with an employee and they really deserve to be dealt with some tough love, a frosty works better than bitchy or heated every day of the week. Do you like watching TV shows? Any favorites you can't miss? Oh, yeah, I find television, particularly in this golden age right now, to be a great way for me to unwind because even though I'm not at Cosmo anymore, I'm still working at least a 50-hour work week. And not surprisingly, I love shows that have suspense element in them. I love The Americans. I'm hooked on American Odyssey, which is on Sunday nights now on I think NBC. I love The Good Wife because there's also suspense and legal drama in that. And I actually love Madam Secretary too, which is a fun show. But True Detective, anything with a lot of suspense is going to be great for me because I tell myself not only am I having a diversion, but it's great for me as a suspense novelist to see how suspense is built on television shows. How do you counteract writer's block? Do you listen to music while writing? Oh, thank you for asking that. First of all, I don't get writer's block because working in magazines, you learn there doesn't have to be such a thing. You just plow through. You write anything. In magazines, you put down a title, you put down that first paragraph, knowing you can always change it and make it better. There's always time. And that's true with fiction too. You just put it down there and you go. I do listen to music. I listen to certain operas that I've listened to so much they're almost like white noise. And I always encourage writers to find what I call the writer's cocktail, a mix of what makes writing more doable for you. Is it morning or night? For me, it's got to be early morning when I'm in the zone. Do you like having a candle lit? What kind of music do you like, or do you like utter silence? And I found I did not really start writing fiction until I got the writer's cocktail right for me. And another part of it was having a big flat surface to write on and not a roll top desk. And it sounds crazy, but writers are quirky and you've got to figure out what's going to work for you. Kate, I'm told you're out of time. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. And you can find Kate TV on Booktrib, and I look forward to having you watch. And best of luck to everyone.